A wary professor pleads with his colleagues through letters of recommendation to offer a promising advisee residency and funding to finish a novel. The professor is Jason Fittger. The book, Dear Committee Members. And you're listening to Lit Society. Let's get lit. Listening to Lit Society, a show about books and drama. How you doing this week, Kari? Yeah. What you been up to? What's good? It's been 5 days since we last chatted?
Yeah, I've been good. Working on some things for our shop, which is going really well, and trying to stay busy. I think this is a great time to work on projects that I've been tabling. But I haven't been working on them, so I'm trying to cram it all in at the last minute in the last week of quarantine, last week's. What about you?
Last
How
weeks
you doing?
Of quarantine.
Yeah.
Okay, so same. I feel like I'm finally getting in a row, kind of a move here. And so I'm ready to start doing things. Well, I've been doing things. I haven't been doing them consistently. So
and you've been
I'm ready
working
this
too.
week. Yeah, I've been working. So I've been trying to relearn how to play the flute, which is fun.
Get out of here.
That.
How are you learning?
Yeah.
Is it a master class?
No.
Those are crazy.
I love free.
Yes.
I'm on YouTube and I have books at home. So I am
like you.
working on that myself.
Okay. Are you sure it's not the recorder that you're learning? It ain't the same.
Listen to me. I also have a recorder. So I know the difference. Okay. I play the recorder and the flute.
Ooh. Well, look at you, girl. The
Mary
whole
had a little lamb.
Okay. Fleece was what? Black as night. I know that's right.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, it's going good. It's going good, and it's still continuously eating. So yeah, life is looking up.
Well, I heard the state of Illinois said y'all ain't nothing but some drunks. So we'll be closing the liquor stores at 9 p.m. Which is great because you and I grew up with liquor store curfews in Milwaukee.
Exactly. But I think that even changed over the years into to what we have today, which is 9 o'clock. I'm just hopeful that they will change it back to what it used to be. Not that I'm up in the middle of the night trying to get alcohol, usually stay well stocked, but I want it for the people.
Yeah, you care about others.
I do. I really do. I care about others.
I need some whiskey. It's 3 a.m. I don't care.
Are they getting what they need?
And what about our breakfast beer? Yeah.
That's all very important.
It is.
It's important. Do you hear me? Okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, friends, each week we select a theme to discuss inspired by the book that we're reading. The theme chosen for this week is letter writing.
I'm going to write a letter. Dear Mr. Royal Hampton, I am a white woman.
How about writing a letter? Somewhere in that area. It's about writing letters, okay, folks?
That makes sense to me.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah, no one writes letters anymore.
They don't. And let me just tell you this story. When my grandmother died almost 2 years ago, my sister and I cleaned out her apartment. And as I cleaned out her apartment, I found boxes upon boxes, large and small, of handwritten and a few typed letters.
Wow.
Can you believe it? Some of the letters went back to the 70s.
Wow.
Do you hear me? 70s.
That she wrote or that she received?
That people wrote to her.
Wow.
Yeah, people wrote to her. So there were responses.
And your grandmama was cute, so I know these was love letters, most of them. Oh, go ahead. She was. Did a lot of them start, "Dear baby"?
Her friends. No, they did not. My grandmother would be appalled, but I think she would love this podcast.
Oh,
okay.
yeah, for sure.
Let me move on.
As long as we don't sing. Okay.
It took me. Yup. It took me days. But I'm positive I read every single one of those letters.
Wow. How invasive.
And I thought, I don't know why people don't write letters anymore. Yeah. I didn't think it was invasive. I needed to read them letters.
No,
it made me
it's
feel
not.
good.
Yeah.
I just don't. I said that to myself that I don't know why people don't write letters, but I know why people, because there's faster ways to communicate.
Mm-hmm.
You got text messaging, DMing, IMing, email, the phone. Am I forgetting something, Kari?
No, that's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I mean, and less meaningful ways to communicate. They're faster and less meaningful.
And then you have to pay for postage and the envelope when you're writing a letter.
So you have to plan. It's not something you can just do spontaneously. You actually have to buy the card or the paper and the stamp. Yeah, that's why one of the best forms of games still to this day, is a letter. Are y'all listening, fellas? Okay. Send that girl a letter. She gonna be yours tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Write a letter. Mm-hmm.
It does something to you when you know that someone has put in the time to physically handwrite a letter, or even typewritten, but handwritten, even more special.
It's true.
After having read all those letters, I left with a feeling of, I want to write again. I want to write letters to people. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I went out and I bought cards and
stationery
envelopes. Yeah. And I just bought it. Thank you letters. I just was ready. The next time I was going to write a letter. It's been almost 2 years, but what did I do? I did not write any letters, let me assure you.
Okay.
Life is so busy.
Yeah.
It's so busy. It's hard to write letters. It's hard to write quick notes. But I can say I wrote at least 2 quick notes, maybe 4.
So you
4
did.
tops,
You
but
did
I wanted
write
to
letters.
do more.
Okay.
I wrote a couple of quick notes. I didn't feel the same. I was reading my 3 and 4 page front and back letters that people were writing to my grandmother. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, but they communicated less often. I'm sure with your friends, you're communicating more often. And even if it's those short spurts of thought via text or Instagram messages or whatever, you're getting off of your chest or sharing with them things that other people were compiling and sending once a month via letter. So give yourself a break. Mm-hmm.
I'll have to learn how to do that. I'm not there yet.
And I know I get at least 3 DMs from you a week. Mostly memes.
It's so easy. And I don't have to think about
Mostly Black Twitter inside jokes. And I appreciate them. Who needs real communication? I want to laugh. Quick laugh.
I do. That's important to me. Mm-hmm. So with the quarantine, being on lockdown, it's been easier to write letters. So I've written some. I've written some letters. I've written some cards. So if you get a card or a letter from me, don't be shocked. Just enjoy it, okay?
Oh, of course. I would never be shocked. I would feel so privileged. So now I'm going to be offended if I don't get one.
I know. Scratch that. Edit that out, okay? Edit that out.
Can you imagine dating somebody?
Forget I said that.
Imagine dating somebody and you can't see them because of quarantine. And you get a letter in the mail like, I know we can't be together right now, but, I don't know. Fill in the blanks. That would be awesome. I might move out just to ask my husband to do that. I'm going to be knocking on your door.
Write Kari a letter. Write Kari a letter. When was the last time you received a handwritten letter or card in the mail?
I think a friend. Your sister sends letters. Your baby sister. So I think she stayed over here. She lives out of state. So when they stayed over here, I got a letter a few weeks later, which is class C. Okay, that is the classiest thing you can do when you. Speaking of which, I stayed at her house since then, and I didn't send a thank you. Not even via
Those
text.
things are past.
Yeah.
They're so past. They don't happen anymore.
They don't. So another friend stayed here also, and then I got a letter from her, and that was maybe a year ago. So it's only when people stay at my house
that they write you letters.
Yeah, which I'm appreciative of.
Yeah, but
really
they're still
sweet.
nice nonetheless. When you get that handwritten note, it just feels nice. I met a woman in Indiana a few years back, and she still sends me a card.
You're good with that, though.
When she's thinking about me. It's very quick and brief, and she, I love receiving it. I mean, it's filled front and even on the outside of the card. She loves me. I know she does. Mm-hmm.
I love that.
So, granted, letter writing isn't the most popular or the fastest form of communication, but it has meaning. And letter writing is still necessary. For example, you may have to write a letter of recommendation for a college student, a college-bound student, a middle school student trying to get to a specialty school. Mm-hmm. You may have to write a letter to a judge on behalf of a family or friend.
Don't put my business out there.
Cover letters. Look.
That was confidential.
Business, okay?
Keep them in there. That's what my letters say.
You know that ain't right. But people have been asked to write letters. Personal letters, even, what do you call it? Personal reference letters? Mm-hmm. That's what I mean about so cover letters, resignation letters, and then sometimes you got to write a letter of complaint to your favorite shopping store. Okay, you do. That's necessary.
I just wrote one of them and got $100 worth of items.
That's what I'm talking about. I need to write a strongly worded letter to World Market. So I decided now is the perfect time to look up some writing tips for my business letter so I can get the results that I want from World Market. So give us those tips. What are they? Here they come. So I went to Purdue University's website. They have an online writing lab, and they gave tips for writing a basic business letter. Of course. So here's tip 1. Start with the sender's address. Don't include the sender's name. So that would be me. I'm the sender. I'm writing a letter to World Market. I'm going to put my address on there. And you're only doing that if you don't have letterhead. Now, in the past, I was real fly. I used to create my own letterhead and then send out the letter. Yes.
I used to copy a fake lawyer, like, I don't know, Quixote and Associates, when I was writing a company. That works.
But why? Oh my goodness.
Because it implies I ain't afraid of litigation. That's why. Mm-hmm.
I ain't scared of you.
Okay.
All right then. Then it said date your letter. Of course, you want to timestamp that. You need to timestamp it and of course make a copy. But then after the date, you want to use the recipient's address. Include their name and title. Then you want to start with some salutation. You're going to write, dear so-and-so. So, dear World Market professionals. But I think I got a name because I was in the store talking and I said, listen, this is how y'all made me feel. And she said, here, let me give you this name right here. So I got a name to write to. So if you have a name, put that name in there. Okay. So then you got the body of the letter. You want this to be concise. You want to be a little friendly, but you want to state your main point. And the rest of the letter is supporting your main point. So you may have 2 or 3 paragraphs. The closing paragraph should restate the purpose of the letter and any required action or what I expect World Market to do for me. Okay?
To rectify the situation. And then in closing, be clear.
Yes. I can say thank you sincerely, followed by like 4 lines, 4 single space lines, and then my name, sender's name. If I got some enclosures, I want to write that as well. My enclosures, in my case, would be documentation. So I'm going to print out like phone records and whatnot. Okay. How they was harassing me. Yeah. I'm including all of that. Do you hear me? I'm very passionate about this, even though it happened a while ago. I still would like to write about it. It just shows that even after this much time,
it's still important to you. Still
affected. All right. Do you have anything to add about letter writing?
Yeah, so I went on the other end and pulled up some tips on writing a thank you letter. So I'll make this quick. But
No problem.
and then I have one more letter I'm just going to share quickly. But in our thank you letter, it doesn't have to be long. A lot of people don't sit and write down a thank you letter because it seems like an overkill when you could just send a quick text. Well, thank you letters don't have to be long. You want to start with who. So thank you, Alexis. What? So thank you, Alexis, for your lovely gifts of carrots. Oh, this is the letter I should have wrote you when you gave me them carrots. Thank you for your lovely gift of carrots. And then how that gift affected you. It helped me really look forward to Friday when I could prepare them and throw them in my salad. And it made the salad just so much better. It was the best salad I ever had. Thank you. Not that like run on me, but I talk a lot. And then finish by looking ahead. So thank you for those gift of carrots. It made my salad that much better. And I look forward to seeing you again and thanking you in person. So in the letter, you're continuing the relationship with the whoever you're saying thank you to. And then finally, at the end, restate your thanks. I love to close my emails. People probably hate this because I do it so redundantly, but I'm thankful. Again, comma, thank you. That's it. Again, comma, thank you, period. So you start off with thank you for, this is how I used it. Look into the future, and ending with, again, thank you. Again, thank you for your generosity. With love, your lifelong BFF, Kari. Also,
I love it. It's quick and to the point. Even though yours is a little wordy, the idea is quick and to the point.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be wordy at all. Just get those main points. You want to thank them for what, how you used it or how it benefited you. Look into the future and then close with a thank you again and a proper closing like greetings with love, many thanks, whatever. And then
you can include the same with thank you letters for interviews that you've had. You don't have to say love, but similarly, thank them again. Next opportunity. I look forward to our next the next stages of this interview. So you can follow that same format under those circumstances. Yeah,
or I like ending those letters with, I look forward to discussing further how my skills can be an asset to your team. So it's like implying that I'm useful to your team, which I'm like, probably not. But whatever. So
that's not the point. You got to sell it to them.
Lastly,
if they think you believe it, that's all that matters.
Lastly, and you acted like you didn't know what these were, but Dear John letters. Now we talked about, upping your game during quarantine, but what if you just want to dead that whole situation? This is a great opportunity to end a relationship. I'm going to say this again. Are you sick of dating this person? End it now. End it now. You have a legal reason for not having to do it face to face. Put it in a non-crazy letter. And this is how.
A concise text?
No. The letters are great. And they're going to show it to people and be like, can you believe she broke up with me over a letter? And, their friends are going to be like, well, she or he is an idiot and you were better than them. They were going to say that anyway. Don't worry about that. This is the classy way to end it. You start by talking about the value that person has brought to your life. So, Dear John, these last few months of our relationship have really taught me patience. And I thank you for, or saying something like, more than anyone I know, you have a great way of bringing out of me qualities such as patience and care or something, some crap. I don't know. And then say, however, I now see that this relationship does not make me feel satisfied. I am obviously looking for something else. So you're putting the burden on you. It's not that person with the problem. And truly it's not.
It's not me. It's you.
Well, no, it's not you. It's
it's not you. It's me.
Because that person is going to be great with someone else. Don't say that, but it's the truth. So it's not them. It's you in this relationship. So where I am right now today, this relationship is not what I'm looking for. And that's it. You don't have to justify it. You don't have to say, even though you're this and this, I just don't feel like, and maybe I don't. No, listen, where you are right now, this relationship is not for you.
You seem like you have some experience at this.
Actually, I'm talking to who I wish I was when I was younger, because before my husband, I did have a really hard time telling people this relationship is garbage, and if I never see you again, it would be too soon. Especially if you were nice. Like, I didn't feel like it was right to break up with nice people. That's stupid. Nice people get broken up with every day, and they still might not be for you, even though they're nice. So anyway, yeah, so you brought this out of me. Thank you. However, this relationship, who I am right now, this relationship does not fit what I'm looking for. So I would like to wish you the best in life. Make sure you close that door too. Don't leave it open like maybe we can get coffee and talk about blah. No, you don't want to do that, and you ain't got to. And in fact, it's not loving to do that. It's not. It's kind of cruel. So
say what you mean and mean what you say.
Yeah. And I think it's a good idea if we don't communicate for a few weeks. And I hope that you find happiness. And I know you will. All right. Okay, bye. Not with love. Sincerely. Not yours truly.
Nope.
And that's it.
Just like wishing you the best, bye.
Yep. Now, the problem with the letters is that it takes a couple days to get them. So they might be calling you in the meantime. Just don't answer. It's fine. Really, this is the loving form of action. So that's fine. That's all I got.
Oh, right. Well, Kari, thank you for that.
No problem.
I like to keep it business, and you like to, take it to the streets. So that's great. That's great. All right. Okay. Why don't we take a quick break before we get into the details surrounding this week's book?
Okay. Sounds good.
We're back.
Yay.
All right, Kari. Would you give us some context for the book and maybe some information on our author?
I will. So, the book is Dear Committee Members. The author is Julie Schumacher. She grew up in Wilmington, Delaware, and graduated from Cornell, where she earned her Master of Fine Arts degree. Her first novel is called The Body of Water, and it was published by Soho Press in 1995. It was a finalist for a few honors. But then in 2014, she published Dear Committee Members, which we're featuring today. That book was nominated for the Thurber Prize for American Humor. Now, published mainly in The New Yorker, James Thurber was a writer and cartoonist in like the 40s and 50s. He wrote The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, which you may be familiar with because the dad from Seinfeld's son is in it.
Sounds familiar.
Ben Stiller. That's his name. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's him. Anyway, it don't matter. His namesake, Thurber's namesake, the Thurber Prize for American Humor, recognizes outstanding contributions in humor writing. Makes sense. In 2019, all women were nominated, all female authors. And in that year, Schumacher won. She was the first woman to do so. Schumacher, Julie, lives in St. Paul and is a faculty member in the creative writing program in the Department of English for the University of Minnesota.
I wonder,
so we're not
they
saying this book is autobiographical, but no, I don't think it is.
It is a man writing.
Yeah,
so.
it's from the point. But authors often
Good
do that.
Good job, Julie.
Yeah.
Wink, wink.
Yeah. So that's it. That's all I got.
Well, that's plenty. That's great. So why don't you give us a brief synopsis of Dear Committee Members and don't include any spoilers.
Okay. And no spoiler synopsis. It's not that brief, but I'll make it quick. Dear Committee Members is a short, punchy novel written in the form of letters that Goodreads puts it this way. Finally, a book that puts the pissed back in epistolary. This book gives a full look into the, I don't think that joke landed. This book gives a full look into the late middle-aged life of one.
I gotta say, it didn't land with me when I read it, so.
Of one Jason Ficker. Ficker is the professor of creative writing and literature at Payne University, which is a small Midwest university that treats its economic staff like royalty, but its English faculty like dinosaurs who have stayed far past their extinction 10 years ago. In the twilight of his career, he is facing regrets, both romantically and professionally, all of which he percolates into a brewing hot cup of sarcasm, pettiness, and reflection through a series of never-ending letters of recommendation, which he's tasked with writing for his peers and students. Of Ficker, Julie told Slate, our author told Slate.com, I see him as a Quixote figure, lacking common sense and personal diplomatic skills, but continuing to fight.
He does.
This book I call perfect for people who watch reruns of Frasier on HULU. Me, I'm people. And that's it. I don't even know if that was a synopsis.
It wasn't, but that's okay. We'll accept it. It's acceptable. Do you hear me? It's acceptable.
I got a lot of time on my hands from quarantine, so this is going to be long-winded.
Sis, write that book. Write that book. You know. Write that book.
Don't pressure me. Okay. Alexis, what were your first thoughts of Dear Committee members?
Okay, so I didn't really know what to select. You always selecting these really random books. I just, I try to get on board with it. That's just the way it goes.
Hey, team player.
I thought it was clever to have a book of letters. I believe this is my first book that I've ever read that's in this epistolary form.
Well,
format.
No, that's not true because you are a Bible reader, but that's okay. Go ahead.
In a novel.
In a novel. Yeah, okay. Makes sense.
So that's different.
Okay. You never read The Color Purple?
No, I never read that. I know you mentioned that, but I've never read that.
Okay.
So
I didn't mean to stereotype you as a Black reader, but we've all read The Color Purple.
You did, and I did not. I done told you my life. Now, why are you judging me?
Okay, I'm sorry.
You continue
your first
to do
thoughts.
this.
I'm so sorry.
Why don't you share your first thoughts, Kari?
I chose this book because it was short.
Get to the point.
I heard it was funny. The end.
Okay, cool. Now that we've got your first thoughts, are we ready for that deep dive?
As ready as we're gonna be. Whew.
Let's get into it. Put all the spoilers back in. Okay.
Here we
started.
go.
You up.
Unfiltered. A deep dive into Dear Committee Members by Julie Schumacher. 3 parts. Readers. Each letter in this book is a study of a lonely life dragged along by the convinced importance of academia. That's right. This is a comedy. Part 1. Mr. and Misanthrope. Misanthrope. How do you say that word? Misanthrope. That's right. Mr. and Misanthrope. So when we first meet Ficker, he is a creative writing and literature professor at the aptly named Payne University. And he's engaging in an activity that requires most of his waking hours outside of teaching, writing an LOR, or letter of recommendation. These letters are written for his peers and past students, present students, and the scope of them is very wide. For example, he might agree to write a recommendation letter for someone applying at a paintball facility or a grocery store or someone that needs funding for their novel. So it's all over the place. When we find him, he's sitting in his classroom, and the university treats the building that he's in that houses English, which is spelled incorrectly, I think, on the directory inside. I think it's like missing an S, which is ironic. The university treats this building as a necessary evil landfill, and it's neglected, to say the least. So econ, or economics, which was once on the floor above English, escaped like upper-class passengers leaving the Titanic one day. And the bottom feeders below had like no clue why. Then a wrecking ball was seen outside of their windows. So apparently the building is being remodeled to fit the refined taste of the still necessary and adored econ department. However, Ficker's window is broken. It won't close. So the soot and dirt from the construction outside powders him and his colleagues like passive-aggressive donuts. The men's room next door to Ficker is broken, but usable. Like there are leaks and stuff, but you can pee in there. Some people choose not to. Some of his peers choose to pee in wine bottles. So they're all weird. The men's. Okay.
Yeah, they are.
Let's move on from the men's
They are.
room. Asbestos. So asbestos is being removed as men in hazmat suits work around the English instructors. And on Ficker's shelf is a group of insects, a beetle, 2 moths, a centipede, and several blue bottle flies, which have formed a motley family for companionship as they enter the last stages of their life, presumably poisoned by the fumes in the building. So that bit of dry humor, the whole book is like this.
The whole book.
So Jay's peers, I'm going to call him Jay. That's easier. Professor Jay, his peers seem to both hate him and admire his intellect. Sometimes no one is talking to him, which is fine because he dislikes people for the most part. He's also had affairs with some of the staff, all of which have ended badly, but more of that later. We know at this point that there's a reply all letter, an infamous reply all letter that he was behind. And also that meetings amongst staff members have ended with ER visits due to disagreements over punctuation. Now, if you are a writer, if you are a real writer or a fake writer like me, you know that discussions about punctuation can get heated. I have definitely been at the brink fighting for Oxford commas. And I'll pick up that fight again. We will use Oxford commas. It will be my mission in life.
We've had an intense discussion about Oxford commas at work before. So it's a big thing.
It's a polarizing. I mean, are you Republican? Are you Democrat? Do you believe in Oxford commas? Don't you? So that's what it is. So Jay is now writing an LOR, letter of recommendation, for his protege in the very first letter of the book. His protege's name is Darren Browles. One of his greatest fears is that Browles will lose momentum on his current work and quit. Another thing that a lot of people can relate to, especially writers, I'm sure. Browles is a disheveled mess, but brilliant. So if the university loses this work or Browles doesn't finish it, the graduate program within the Department of English may never be resurrected. Funding's already being pulled. So a lot is riding on this protege in Jay's mind. Part 2, Love and Writer's Workshop. Jay Ficker was young once. What was he like, do you think, as a youth?
I have no idea. I can't even begin. I know he was messy.
I picture him as
I mean, the way he writes these letters, he was messy. He was messy.
And he's a bit self-absorbed.
Or did time do that to him? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he's a bit selfish. He's very selfish. So his recommendation letters often wind up just being letters about him and his issues. So he reminds me, probably in his youth, I'm thinking he's like a very Clooney-like build, but a nerd. So Clooney with like real thick glasses. And he gets a lot of female attention, but he's married. And it's not so much that he's faithful to his wife in his heart, which he is, but he's more, if he has a mistress, it's his writing. So he's very involved and absorbed in his written work and trying to be published. Every writer wants to be published, right?
Yeah.
So there's this seminar.
Right.
And his wife is a writer too, by the way. But there's this seminar that they attend, both Jay and his wife, Janet. Jay and Janet. I just noticed alliteration. This seminar is a recurring topic throughout the book. And it seems like it is comparable to the Iowa Writers Workshop, which we talked about in our Such a Fun Age episode. Yeah, because Kylie Reed attended the Iowa Writers Workshop. That is a very coveted position to be in that workshop because you get money and you get peers with which you can share ideas and they can help you perfect your work. You get a mentor, maybe many mentors, depending on your focus. And then when the workshop is over, you can be chosen for your work to be published. So you end with something tangible and with more money because you're probably going to get a deal from a publishing house. So anyway, they went to the seminar, which is like the Iowa Writers Workshop. It was overseen by a man, an instructor named HRH. It was here that the fires of Jay's divorce were first sparked. In those days when he was young, promising talent, He was ambitious. And the bad ambition where he would like, maybe walk on people a little bit to get what he wanted. That's what you got.
On people on your way up. Mm-hmm.
So while he was there, he had this like Martin Pam relationship. Martin Pam relationship.
Oh,
with this woman named Eleanor. Like he might walk into a classroom and Eleanor would be like, "Oh, why you in my chair?" And he'd be like, "Shut up." But inside he going, "With your cute self." Remember, he's married to Janet, who's also attending. The instructor, HRH, sees their dynamic, Jay and Pam and Eleanor's. And HRH encourages Fitzger to use Eleanor's inspiration for the protagonist's love interest in Fitzger's book. So Fitzger is in the workshop. Jay is in the workshop working on his novel, trying to get help. The instructor, HRH, is like, well, you seem to have this funny chemistry with Eleanor. Use that for the love interest in your book. Can you see where this is going?
Uh-oh. Not well.
Imagine somebody telling your man like, oh, you seem to really be like having a great relationship with this random girl. You should make your character fall in love and perhaps sleep with her in your book.
Right. And I'm married.
And you're married and your wife is also in the class, your mate. So Jay did that. He also started sleeping with Eleanor. So yeah, the book was called The Stain, and it was selected at the end of the seminar. It is partly autobiographical. So folks are pissed.
In more ways than one.
Yeah. And his wife divorces him. Fitzger and Eleanor, Jay and Eleanor fall out. What is that relationship based on? So, of course. But, and this is something I would do, Eleanor and Janet become friends. Because they're probably like, Janet at first is going to hate Eleanor. But then she going to be like, you know what? This man tried to ruin both of our lives. But look at us. We doing great. And Eleanor was like, yeah, and I wanted to tell you something. I'm sorry. Because it wasn't even worth it. And you seem great. So they become friends. And Jay becomes consumed with worry that they're both talking about him behind his back. He even puts that in letters of recommendation. Has no place there. Years later, he begins sleeping with another colleague. Now they're all like at universities with different positions. He begins sleeping with a woman named Carol and stopping by her office all unannounced with like artichoke salad. It's weird. Basically, Jay is getting lonely. The women in his life have left him because he is self-absorbed and full of issues. And even though his book got published, he ain't got no woman. So he like starts a long-term fling with Carol. They don't have a real relationship, but they're sleeping together. And then in a reply all email, so the whole staff is on an email, I guess that Carol sends out. Or no, Janet. Messy. Janet, his ex-wife, sends out the letter. He replies to Janet. He thinks he's not good with electronics. But he actually replies to everyone and tells them, listen, I know I'm sleeping with Carol, who's like nothing compared to you. Like, she's smart or whatever, but she's nothing like you. Like, she like really slow compared to you. Also, you beautiful. Also, I love you and I'm so sorry.
And I want to get back with you,
right? I wish I never messed things up and I want to get back to you. And he sends that to everyone in the world. Guess what? Carol stops talking to him. How petty of her. Yeah, why? Yeah, and she also like
selfish.
Yeah. Yeah, she stopped speaking to him. So I want to talk a little bit about Jay's issues with women. Okay, so there are some letters of recommendation where he touches on the lives of women outside of his ex-wife and the two women he has been involved with since her. And one that stands out is a student who gets a 6-figure deal for her book. This student, he writes a letter of recommendation for, but puts in there, I don't really like her. And she brilliant, but she like dull. And you should definitely consider her for this opportunity, but don't say I didn't warn you that she'll bore you to sleep. This is just him, I gather, being jealous because this girl is an achiever. Yes, she got a 6-figure deal for her book, which is unheard of in an era where published writing is dying as an art. She got a deal and, quotes, her ultimate plan is to apply to med school also. So this girl got a book deal, but she's also going to med school. And he says in his recommendation letter, her ultimate plan in applying to med school may be to join the ranks of physician writers who, not content to leave the pursuit of literary success to starving artists, complement their $1 million medical salaries with Random House contracts. So when you read it,
reeked of jealousy.
He's just jealous.
That absolutely reeked of jealousy when I read that one.
So,
this is the Vivian Zales, right?
Is that right?
The one?
Okay.
I think that's her name. Mm-hmm.
So Vivian is like achieving all the goals. And meanwhile, he's at the twilight of his career. So he's feeling a little bit sad and regretful, and then also jealous, especially of women. So he's a bit of a Michael Scott wrapped into a Frasier. I could see that too, because Michael has issues with women. Part 3, our final part. This is quick. This is a short book. The Afterword. Here's where I'm going to talk about Troy. Troy is someone that Jay has known for 23 years. They went to grad school together. Jay urged Troy, I'm inferring, to take a vacation because there's some issue that they had that Troy was still mad at him about. And I think he urged him to take a vacation because Troy and his wife were like overworked. So they do.
Didn't Troy? Oh, okay. Let me let you finish the story. Go ahead. Okay.
So Troy and his pregnant wife go on vacation and everyone dies in comedic, tragic fashion except Troy.
Yeah.
So lightning hits the house when Troy runs out to get something. Everyone is scorched to death, and Troy moves to India to live off the grid for a few years. But it's kind of funny when you read it. I'm sorry. You got to read it. We're not translating the comedy here, if there is any.
It's comedy, but it's not often translatable.
Dry and dark.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, good news. Now Troy is writing again all these years later. And that's wonderful because Troy is brilliant, according to Jay. So Troy spends his nights in having kind of lucid dreams where he's finishing the story in his novel and on the phone with Jay, sharing his ideas, just bouncing them off of Jay, who everyone respects for his intellect. And then Jay spends his days, after those nights, Jay spends his days writing letters of recommendation for Troy. So he's reaching out to different institutions, please consider his writing. He's a great mind, one of the greatest minds of our perhaps generation, of course, outside of mine. And, consider him for your next check because he's got this great work. Yeah, you're going to hate yourself if you don't scoop him up. Well, actually, no, Troy never read him any of his writings. That was a lie that Jay comes clean about at the end of the book. But when he lied, in his mind, it was to help create this story around the letter of recommendation, saying, I've heard some of this work. It's brilliant. You need to scoop him up. And he wants to create a false sense of closeness with Troy, which he doesn't seem to have. Is there anything else you want to bring out with Troy?
No, it was the murder. I mean, not the murder,
okay, the other thing. So the thing with Troy and his purpose for being in this book, Troy is miserable. Jay is miserable. Troy is brilliant. Jay is on the upper end of borderline mediocrity, at least if the results of his work are to be believed. So perhaps there is some vicarious success that Jay is reaching for when writing all of these letters of recommendation for Troy. But anyway, moving on. Again, it's a short book. Jay sees in his students a desire for permanency. A lot of writers can relate to this. You write, maybe if you don't admit it to yourself, maybe, because you want a piece of yourself out there forever. But that's not how it works. naively unaware of the ephemeral state of literature. They want this work to live on past them. But Jay's own books are mostly out of print and hard to find. And he's reflecting on that in the twilight of his life. So he graduated from this renowned workshop. His book was chosen. It was acclaimed, but his follow-up books were yawned on. There was more romance around a debut novelist, which I think carries on into today. And when it comes to your second, third, or whatever works, unless you grab that cult following, like a Dan Brown, for example.
Yeah, right.
You're not like an album. Like I love Daly, Gallant. These are artists who, to me, put forth great and brilliant first works. Their follow-up works also very great, but you don't hear about them because it's not that debut artist romance around it. So people stop caring. So late in his career, Jay wonders why HRH, who was the instructor over their workshop, acted like the be all and end all of their careers, because that's not true. That's not how it works. But that's kind of how he's acting in the twilight of his career. So maybe Jay doesn't see HRH too was looking for some permanence vicariously through them, through his students. And it's the same thing Jay is doing.
Yeah,
anything you want to add? Mm-hmm.
He's writing all these letters of recommendation, and they are, I don't know how to say it. I mean, they're
about him.
They're so filled with pure opinion that doesn't have much to do with the actual work of the student. He's how the work will follow. It was one letter that he wrote.
He was like, I'll tell you about why this person would be great for the opportunity you're offering. But first, let me get some things off of my chest.
Exactly. All his letters veer off, and it's like it amounts to 2 sentences. Yeah. And he's written like 1,300 LORs, and they're all about him.
Yeah, yeah.
And maybe 2 sentences
like
about the other person.
Now we come to Darren Browles. And Darren Browles is the protege of Jay Ficker. Since we're coming clean, for example, Jay admits that Troy never shared his work with him. When it comes to Darryl Browles, Browles is working on a book about an accountant in a Las Vegas brothel. It's not good. And I don't mean it's immoral and disgusting. I mean the work itself is not interesting. So,
right.
Confidentially, Browles, because that's his mentor, shares his work with Jay. Jay reads it and sees Browles in a grocery store one day and just grabs his arm. Now, Browles has some fights of his own. So he is working with different medications to help get his mood stabilized. He may have had some issues with recreational drugs, but this man is, in Jay's opinion, he has potential to be a great writer. Yeah. But once Jay sees the work that Browles has produced, he isn't left hopeless, like Browles can't fix it, but he doesn't know how to tell him that, because he doesn't want him to sink into despair and quit the work, because then the graduate program might completely be dead. And then also he kind of believes in Browles. That's his protege. Yeah. Well, anyway. Yeah. So what Jay decides to do is turn to HRH, the instructor who was head over the seminar so many years ago. And the seminar, again, is like the Iowa workshop. But he shares that work, which he shouldn't have shared it, but he shares it with HRH. And HRH is now in a nursing home, by the way, and has an interview that's published with a small publication that's almost like it's one of these publications that was probably a weekly newspaper back in the day, but now it's just a blog. And they publish an interview with HRH where he says he's writing a book about an accountant at a brothel. And he genuinely believes he's the one writing it. So Jay is like feeling regretful that he shared this work that he never should have shared. And then the interview is published where he's saying he's writing it. And so when the work comes out, it won't be seen as an original idea, but also hopefully this work never comes out because it's terrible. It's hard to read. It's just terrible.
Yeah.
So why do you think, before we continue, why did he even reach out to HRH again? Do you think?
I think he was still looking for some pull and some assistance for Browse.
Yeah.
So and he thought he could get that support through HRH.
Yeah. Introduce him to the right people, help him get back on track. You did it for me, you can do it for Browse.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
That sort of thing. I also think it was him trying to reconnect with the only person who in his mind might understand him at this late part of his career. But anyway, unfortunately, while reading the obituaries, he sees that Browse committed suicide. He did so after destroying his work. There are questions out there. Did he sense Jay's disapproval at the grocery store? Did he see the interview with HRH? You don't know, but you know that whatever the reason was, it doesn't matter anymore because his protege is now deceased. And he destroyed his work because he didn't want it to be published without it ever being finished. Like, Go Set a Watchman, like that To Kill a Mockingbird sequel that was weird.
Yeah.
He didn't want it to be like that. So he made sure his family couldn't get a hold of it. So Janet comes by. Remember, that's the ex-wife. After she hears of the suicide of Browse, she comes by Jay's house, cleans up for him. Now, nothing can make a man in despair feel better than somebody cleaning and cooking for him. Why? Because that reminds him of his mama. And he's like, oh, I got someone who cares for me. He never stopped writing Janet love letters. They used to meet twice a year, I think on their anniversary and then the anniversary of their divorce. And that was it. She didn't really want to have anything to do with them, but continued these biannual lunches for his sake. And he's writing her letters like, can we meet more than twice a year? You're not talking to Eleanor about me, are you? Also, I love you. So she does come by, but he finds out later that she's moved on and she's with the dean now.
Ooh, yes. That hit him hard. Yeah. And toward the end of the book, Jay nominates Franklin Cantrell for faculty state. And this is a man he has called insane and the sole reason why the entire department is to be avoided. So at the end, it seems as if he has come full circle. He sees who he was, who he's been, and he's softening up a bit. And that's it. That's the end of this book.
Well, all right then. Let's take a break. Members by Julie Schumacher. Alexis, what were your final thoughts and your verdict of the book? Would you recommend this? Let me know. Tell me everything.
Okay, so so the dry humor, I picked it up. I got some of it
and put it back down.
I did. I did have moments where I chuckled, but I was reading some reviews where they're like rolling on the floor laughing. I was like, ooh, but it's not that kind of laughter. It's not at all that kind of laughter. So I think it's very well written. I really do. I like how she writes and the way those letters are written. I smile and a little bit, but ultimately I don't need to read this book again.
Would you recommend it to anyone else?
I don't know who that would be, but I'm sure there are people that would appreciate it.
Okay, so your verdict is a no.
Yeah, so it's gonna be a no for me, dog.
Okay. Okay, all right. I see how you do my books. Okay,
So, Kari, what do you think?
Yeah.
What's your final verdict, and would you recommend it?
Okay, so with this book, I'm projecting a lot of my feelings and opinions about the lives of my old professors, my grandfather, a lot of men who to me are at the end of their body of work and who may be filled with a regret. I just want them to look back on their lives with satisfaction, feeling like they lived with purpose. I want them to feel valued and important, but I don't know if they are. So how that applies with Jay is that I really respect his intellect. I am plugging in the holes. It is typical with epistolary works is you're filling in a lot of the story because you're not getting the full, you're only getting a section of that character's life, which is how it's supposed to be. And that means
you're not getting the responses to these letters.
Exactly. Sometimes he'll refer to the response that he received in a past letter within one of his letters, but that's all you got. I was really rooting for him and Janet. I thought Janet would come back to him, but I do think his love with Janet was like romantic inertia. He didn't ever mature when it came to emotion. He was a very book smart person, but at the end of his career, he wanted something more than just that book he published once to be the summary or the bow put on the package of his life. So I will say I had laugh out loud moments where I was rolling on the floor and I thought, that person. This is hilarious. I did.
Okay,
There's
good.
one chapter in there. I have a note here. It just says the funniest. My verdict. When it comes to Dear Committee members, I thoroughly enjoyed this book. It is stupid short. It is 120 pages or something? This is a large pamphlet.
No, it's longer.
Is it?
It's longer. Yeah, it's like 190 pages.
Oh my goodness, it's so short. And as a work, I just thought it was good. I was thoroughly entertained. It gave me a break from reading serious things. A welcome break. I love that dry humor. I watch Frasier. So I would recommend it. I love Frasier.
So the writing you're saying is definitely good, and hands down the writing is great.
And the story, I like Jay's story. Now I know she has a sequel. I don't know if I have to continue my time with him, but our time together I thoroughly enjoy. I mean, yeah, this reminds me of some professors I had. Whose seminars whose public speaking events I would go to, like by myself, like just to learn from them and be in awe of their way of putting ideas together and formulating coherent thoughts. And so
were they also full of themselves?
Yeah, of course. And there is a section in here where Jay kind of implies that he, in his world, he is God. Now, he is an agnostic who is at the height of his egotism, probably when Stain is published after the seminar is over. So in his mind, he is God and literature is his faithless servant. He's put everything, literally all he has, his marriage, his relationships, his plans for life, have all centered around literature, and literature didn't serve up to whatever he had in mind for it. And now literature is so ephemeral that he feels like it's nothing like it used to be. And he compares people who are computer oriented to mechanics, which, by the way, it ain't easy being a mechanic. But he's like, you're worse than a mechanic because you only have one set of tools and it's the computer. So he's like disillusioned in that way. And he sees writers as the only people who can think critically and who can be prepared for any situation. That too is hyperbolic. That's weird.
What are we reading next week, Kari?
Little Fires Everywhere.
And people are talking about that everywhere. There's a whole movie, a TV show about it.
With Carrie Witherspoon and Reese Washington.
Well, thank you, readers, for listening to Lit Society. We'll be here next week, Thursday. Lit Society is brought to you by Alexis Honoria and Kari Herrera.
Yeah.
Support the cause by leaving a 5-star review for our show on Apple Podcasts, along with a comment about why you absolutely love us. Thank you, because we love you too.
So much.
If you've enjoyed what you've heard this week, please tell a friend about Lit Society Podcast. Visit litsocietypodcast.com for show notes, this month's book list, to sign up for our amazing email newsletter. And until next time,
Read something.